Ohio's Attorney General is going to join us. Right, we're in the middle of this conversation. Attorney General Mike DeWine, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. I'm an Ohioan too. So,
thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to you. And we were just talking about what Ohio is going to be doing here. In what way do you think that these companies fraudulently marketed? Was it to the doctors or the consumers too?
Well, first of all, let me just say, to follow up on something you said a moment ago, we have taken the licenses of over 100 doctors in Ohio. We put doctors in prison. These were the bad actors. But what these pharmaceutical companies did is they misled good doctors, primarily general practitioners. They did it by spending a lot of money. They did it by setting up these pseudo groups that were similar to what the tobacco industry did a number of years ago, these groups that were supposed to be impartial, but they set them up and they paid for them, and so they misled the public. What they did is they told these doctors and they told the public that these drugs, these wonder drugs, that can be so valuable for someone who is dying from cancer, for example. They told these doctors, these are not very addictive. Well, they are very addictive, and they knew that. And they put a lot of money behind this, and they really changed the culture. They created a culture in this country that said, these pain meds are good, these pain meds are not something you have to worry about. And doctors followed suit. They figured the manufacturer knew what they were talking about. Other interesting thing is, when you look at the glossy brochures and the other promotion that these companies were doing, if you compare that to the fine print, you know, when you open your package and you look at the fine print that I'm sure many people never read, the fine print was much more accurate. But the sales pitch out there was very, very misleading. That has resulted in Ohio in so many people who have died as an overdose of the pain meds. But the other thing it's led is, we believe about at least 3/4 of the people who are on pain meds, on heroin, started with pain meds. The same thing would be true with fentanyl and carfentanil. So they start on the pain meds. You have a blue-collar worker who gets injured. He or she goes into their doctor, their primary care physician. Primary care physician relies on what the pharmaceutical company has said. They give them the prescription, and tragically, the person becomes addicted.
You get hooked, and then you start going to the cheaper alternative.
Pain meds anymore.
Right?
They move over to the heroin. They go. That's right. They go over to the fentanyl.
You know, now one drug maker, for example.
Tragic result.
Yeah. One drug maker, we have to get their side, said basically the painkillers are FDA approved. They've got warning labels, and another said it's fighting against addiction, not for it. What do you want to happen? Is it money that Ohio wants so that it can deal with the snowball effects that the state has seen? Is it that you want, I mean, what exactly are you in for it for?
Yeah. First of all, we want them to stop doing what they're doing. Second, we want them to spend money to roll that back. They've created this culture. They've created this expectation from patients and from physicians. They need to spend some money to start rolling that back. The third thing is, they need to reimburse Ohioans who have lost a lot of money. Fourth, they need to reimburse the state of Ohio for Medicaid, amount of money we've paid out in Medicaid, and the amount of money that's been paid in workers' compensation. The economic impact on Ohio is very, very hard to describe how bad it is. Not only all the people who have died, not only their families, but children's services are overflowing, for example, with kids today, because half of all the kids in foster care in Ohio are there because one or both parents are drug addicts.
Yeah. I wonder too about grandparents who have to take care of.
And they're the detox centers.
Yeah, there seems to be a little bit delay. Sorry about that, Mike.
Well, grandparents taking care of children is a very common thing today.
You know, in full disclosure,
sad.
In full disclosure, I mean, one of my first cousins in Ohio crunched up, apparently, the painkillers that he had been on for years, took a nap and never woke up. So are you saying that for my aunt, yeah, me too. For my aunt and for all the people who've been affected in Ohio, are you saying that this lawsuit, say if Ohio wins it, that something could be in it for them in terms of can't replace their loved one, but they would somehow be repaid for something. What does it mean for them?
You know, we really don't know until this goes to court. You know, look, anything that they might receive is going to be just trivial to what they've gone through. Our main concern is to turn this around. And we're doing a lot of things at the local level. We're doing a lot of things in the Attorney General's office. We're working with local law enforcement. We're also working to try to get people into treatment, which by the way is one of the kind of neat things that law enforcement is doing in Ohio and a lot of jurisdictions. They know they can't arrest their way out of this problem, and so they're helping to get people into treatment. All of that has to continue. But we've got to get these pharmaceutical companies, they've created this huge mess. They need to be doing some positive things. First of all, they need to stop what they've been doing. But what about if all of them got together and said, you know, we're going to spend some money on ads that were accurate ads to try to address this, to try to talk directly to kids, to try to talk directly to parents. That would be a very positive thing that they could do.
Mike, how have you been directly affected? Mike DeWine here, our Ohio Attorney General, that we're talking to. If you're just now joining us at this hour, we're talking to Mr. DeWine because as Attorney General of Ohio, if you're just joining us at this hour, that state is going to take 5 different big drug makers to court, suing, alleging that they had a big part fraudulently in getting a lot of people hooked on opiate painkillers. So back to you. How have you been directly affected? I mean, a lot of people, you'd be hard pressed to say that you weren't.
No, you can't find, I'll say very few people out of our 11+ million people in Ohio have not been impacted some way. You can't go into any group without finding people start nodding their head when you start talking about this problem. People who have lost a cousin, people who have lost a brother, or somebody in their church has died, somebody at work has died. Or the thing that we don't talk about so much, but imagine parents of children who are in recovery. And every single day, you know, every single night, they may have adult children who are in recovery. They're worried, is that child or that loved one going to fall off the wagon? Are they going to go back and start using? Are they going to get a call, a knock at the door? It's just, it has tremendous emotional impact on people. Mm-hmm. The other thing we see in Ohio is so many people cannot pass a drug test. And so, you know, for these people, they're never going to be able to have a lot of jobs. They're never going to be able to be hired to be around equipment. They're not going to be able to drive a truck, a lift truck. So many people have been impacted this way, and their kids have been impacted. You know, yesterday we had a mom at the press conference, and she was from the county that we filed this lawsuit, Ross County, Chillicothe in Ohio. And it just breaks your heart to listen to her, and it breaks your heart to listen to other mothers. What you see in Ohio is that some of the grassroots efforts that are really starting to do some real good are led by moms, sometimes by dads, but frankly it's usually the mom who's lost a son or lost a daughter, and they take that tragedy and they try to make something positive out of it. And they're the real heroes who are out here every single day, and they're saving lives. Even as this, you know, it's good news and bad news, I tell people. They ask, well, how's it going in Ohio? I said, look, the bad news is this wave just keeps coming. The good news is there are a lot of people whose lives are being saved. We'll never know who they are, or they'll never be in a newspaper, but their lives are being saved because of good people in community after community who are forming grassroots groups. And one of the things in the Attorney General's office we do, I have 6 people who do nothing but go out and try to help these grassroots groups, because we believe while the state, we want to do what we can do as Attorney General, Governor wants to do what he wants to do, can do, federal government. Ultimately, though, the most good that can be done is people in their individual communities saying, number 1, we have a problem. Number 2, we're going to band together. We're going to pull the schools in, the law enforcement in. We're going to bring the churches in, and we're going to work on this problem together. And that's what we encourage in the Attorney General's office people to do.
You know, CNN, I have to say, reached out to all 5 of the drug makers that you've named in this lawsuit for comment. Now, we've not heard back from Endo, but Allergan said it does not have a comment because it's a suit, or on the suit. Johnson & Johnson says, we firmly believe the allegations in this lawsuit are both legally and factually unfounded. Teva Pharmaceuticals says Teva believes that it is better for all concerned if the industry and public officials devote their resources to addressing the important public health issues related to opioids rather than litigation. And then Purdue Pharma said, we share the Attorney General's concerns about the opioid crisis, and we are committed to working collaboratively to find solutions. You know, these are big companies. Pharmaceutical companies have, I would imagine, a lot of money that they could put behind this. So how long are you prepared to stay in this, in the courtroom?
Look, we're in this fight, to continue this fight all the way through. We knew what we were getting into. And there's only been 2 states so far that have really taken this on holistically as we have. And by the way, one of the things I said yesterday is, everybody needs to understand in Ohio, we got to keep doing all the things that we're doing and more. The lawsuit is going to take time. I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's the moral thing to do. Quite candidly, after we looked at all the evidence, I felt it would be irresponsible for me not to bring this lawsuit and not to bring people to justice. We're after justice. We're after fairness. We want these companies who have created this mess to be really part of the solution, and they need really to do that.
Now, we are a national news show, and so not only, obviously, do we cover Ohio news, but I wonder, have you heard from other states, other attorney generals in other states? Could they join you in this if they're dealing with similar problems? Do you see a trend happening, is what I'm asking.
I certainly encourage them to.
Class action.
Yeah. I don't know yet. I've already talked to several attorney generals about this, and I would hope that any attorney general, any state, would take a look at the facts. We believe that the facts are overwhelming. We believe that just the weight of the evidence is so very, very strong that these pharmaceutical companies misrepresented the danger. Basically said to people, these drugs are not very addictive. They are very addictive. And, the evidence is very, very strong. I mean, if you look at what they did, they changed the culture, and they targeted doctors, and they targeted primarily a doctor you and I would go into as our family physician. And doctors rely on pharmaceutical companies because they're the ones that produce it. They're the ones that test it. They're supposed to know. They rely on what that pharmaceutical company says. And what these pharmaceutical companies did is they put a full court press on the doctors. They not only had the glossy literature, they not only had their sales reps coming in and pushing this and selling it. They set up fake groups, really, that were funded by the pharmaceutical companies to give, quote, impartial views about pain meds. They paid doctors and gave doctors a script, and gave them talking points, and gave them a slideshow to go out and talk to other doctors, and they paid them to do that. So these people are very, very good. They're very, very sophisticated at getting their product out. We don't complain about that, but what we complain about is they weren't telling the truth. They just weren't telling the truth, and it's wrong. It's morally wrong, and it's legally wrong.
This is a little bit of a twist here. I see right now, I'm looking at our wires, and I see that completely different subject in terms of medicines. But opiate overdose reversal drug, I'm thinking it must be Narcan, can now be purchased over the counter
Narcan,
legally.
naloxone, right.
Yes, in Maryland. Have you thought about that in Ohio? Would that help in terms of saving some lives in the short term?
Well, we're actually doing that in Ohio. And we have, in addition, some pharmacies, some of the chain pharmacies have put this in their store. And look, I know that naloxone, Narcan is the trade name, can be controversial. But I will tell you, in Ohio, we think we're losing 10, 12 people a day. I can't begin to guess what that number would be if it was not for Narcan and naloxone. And I know some people say, look, it's just crazy. We keep bringing these people back, and they keep doing it again, and they do it again. But it's the right thing to do. I mean, we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice to say somebody should live or somebody should not live. And I want, you know, almost all of our EMS squads, many of our police departments and sheriff's department now are carrying the Narcan. We tell family members, if you've got someone who you're worried about falling off the wagon, someone who's an addict, a recovering addict, you know, you need to have that. I could bring you people, 2 women that I talked to a few months ago. Both had been brought back to life, one twice, one 3 times by the miracle of Narcan and naloxone. They both were sober, and they both were making it.
Thank
and
goodness.
they wouldn't have been alive but for that.
Thank goodness.
You know?
And you're right,
and
it is
one
controversial.
Of them has her child back.
Wow.
You know, it's controversial, but look, it needs to be done, and people need to do it, and it's the right thing to do.
Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine, you've been so gracious with your time this morning, speaking on a subject that has touched a lot of people. I appreciate it. All right, thank you.
Thank you for doing it and talking. Thank you very much.